All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. This is our weekly show that we do every Wednesday at 11 Central. I'm Laura Rogers, and just a quick little overview of what SharePoint Power Hour is. It is just basically business solutions that you can do in SharePoint that don't involve programming and that don't involve hardcore server administration. So this is about our 71st episode, by the way.
Excellent.
And
about your 71st.
So, yeah, about, around 71. And so again, I'm Laura Rogers, and this is my team at Rackspace. Today we have a special guest, Brett Lonsdale. And funny story, we've known each other for years. And my very first time that I spoke at a conference, I co-presented with Brett. And the way I met him was at the very first Best Practices conference. Somehow I ended up at a speaker dinner or something like that with a bunch of these guys. I didn't know anybody really, but I had written a book, a chapter in Bill English's Moss Administrator's Companion. It was SharePoint 2007. And as I was sitting there at dinner with all these people I didn't know talking, I heard somebody say Brett Lonsdale and recognized that name. And I said, hey, you wrote one of the chapters in the same book too, right? And he's like, who are you? I was like, yeah, so yeah. So then after that, I kind of said, well, maybe I could try this whole presenting at conferences thing. And since I wrote the chapter about the out-of-the-box web parts, I said, hey, let's do a session about out-of-the-box web parts.
Yep, that's right. And yeah, so we did a great session, I think, and yeah, that session, I wasn't convinced it was going to work, doing out-of-the-box web parts. A lot of the sessions that I would usually do would be technical ones where we'd go into code and that sort of thing, so I wasn't that excited about doing out-of-the-box web parts, but yeah, we had standing room only.
Yes, they were crammed. It was a pretty big room, too, yeah.
So I think it was your looks, my accent. We attracted them.
We did. And afterwards you said out-of-the-box web parts. Who knew? So, and I still do that same session. Just last week at SP TechCon, I did that. And out-of-the-box web parts, through the different versions of SharePoint, they changed a little. So yeah. So Brett is I consider you a BCS guru, the Business Connectivity Services, which is also considered external content types. If you've seen that, maybe in SharePoint Designer, and that is there is a no-code way, basically, to connect to other systems other than SharePoint, other databases, and things like that. So today we're going to do the BCS. Real quick, let's go ahead and get Kevin and Ryan to introduce yourselves. Kevin?
Good morning. My name is Kevin Hughes. I'm a SharePoint architect here at Rackspace, based out of Kansas City. Not been with Rackspace very long, but been working with SharePoint for, seems like, ages. My role is to figure out what our clients need and then figure out how to solve all their ills using SharePoint.
And you've tamed the BCS beast before too, Kevin. I know that you've done that a few times, huh?
Yeah, it's surprisingly easy in 2013 compared to previous versions. So it's very powerful.
Okay, Ryan.
Hi everybody, I'm Ryan Keller. I am coming to you from Colorado, and my role on the team is the SharePoint branding and design guy. Basically, I make SharePoint look a little less SharePointy and more like what the client would like it to look like.
All right, cool. Oh, and I forgot to mention why you're at my house. So
yeah.
We Brett's wife Sarah, SharePoint Sarah, her aunt lives right around the corner, like a mile from my house, and they were in town visiting. So they live in England though. So
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've been over for my daughter's birthday. She's 1, and so here we are, and thought we'd call in on Laura and let the kids hang out and so on. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, fun stuff. All right, so Brett has got, we'll go ahead and hand it over to Brett. And as before, real quick, we have a little Q&A panel. So for those of you who are watching this, we have 29 viewers. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, it actually has a little yellow link to take you over to the Google Hangout. And once you're on the Google Hangout, you're going to see a little sort of like some little squares icon at the top right, and then that lets you flip between apps. So by default, it gives you this app that's called Showcase that we share hyperlinks with you on, and then the other app is the Q&A. So that's how you can get to the Q&A, and you guys can ask us questions as we go, as Brett talks about the BCS. So, and I'll field those questions for you, but I'll let you go ahead and share your screen.
Okay.
Oh, Lori says happy birthday. Hey, Lori.
Okay, so yep, thank you very much for the introduction, Laura. So I'm Brett Lonsdale. I'm from a company called Lightning Tools, and we're based over in the United Kingdom. We're in a little town called Lutterworth, which is a small market town, famous for nothing really. We did invent the jet engine, which was I guess one key thing. So there was a guy in Lutterworth that invented that, and we didn't know what to do with it. He had this jet engine that sat there. So the Germans have the claim of inventing the jet engine because they put it on a plane. Oh, that's so so that was quite useful.
Nice little tidbit.
Yeah. So yeah, out of a small town called Lutterworth, Lightning Tools, we're a company. We provide SharePoint products around the business connectivity services and around SharePoint in general.
I put a link to that in the little showcase, by the way.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, permissions management, content aggregation, social, and like I said, BCS as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of that maybe towards the end after the BCS.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah. We'll see how we go. So yeah, that's about me. I'm also going to grab Laura on a SharePoint Pod Show recording as well at some point this week. So we threatened that last week in Austin, Texas. Myself, Rob Foster, and also Spence Harbour do something called the SharePoint Pod Show.
There's a link to that in the showcase as well.
Yeah.
So you're watching.
And I think might be just ahead of you on the number of episodes, but we don't have a video or anything like that. But we are around about 72, I think, rather than around about 71. But we'll.
Nice.
There we go. So with regards to business connectivity services, it's been something that I've been involved in right from the very start. We got involved with it in 2007. One of Laura's passions has always been the data view web part, and it's safe to say that was also one of my passions as well. Back in the 2003 version of SharePoint, I used to use front page a lot and the data view web part to connect to external data sources, and was quite excited to see that in 2007 they had something called the Business Data Catalog that would allow you to connect to these external data sources and not just display data in SharePoint, but also get that data coming through the search. So you could use the Search Center in the enterprise version of SharePoint. In fact, it was called SharePoint Portal Server Enterprise.
Wow.
So back then, yeah, you could search not just SharePoint content, but also your external database content. So whether it was an Oracle database that you were searching or a SQL database, it didn't really matter. You could expose those results and open them up. There was also a number of read-only web parts and so on that are still there. And we also had the external data column, which I'll be able to show you as well. So as it's evolved from 2007, in SharePoint 2010 there was a big step up to business connectivity services, and one of the major introductions then was the external list. So many people that were using SharePoint 2007 and the Business Data Catalog couldn't write back to the data source. That you could do it via the API, but that meant developing code, and we all know what Laura thinks about writing code. So
and you could look at the data through the web parts, but you just couldn't.
That's it. You couldn't update it.
Yeah.
So and a lot of people don't want to. They just want to build some dashboards or what have you. But yeah, it's useful to be able to use that external data as though it's SharePoint content. And that's exactly what the external list allows you to do. So you can create items, you can edit them, delete them, and so on. So that was a good introduction. So a little bit like getting drunk. When you get drunk, you always swear to yourself you're never going to drink again. And one of the things I did, as Laura alluded to, was we wrote a chapter for a book.
And you swore you're never going to write it.
I swore I was never going to write a book, yeah, ever again. So yeah, here we are, like 3 or 4 books on.
Yeah.
We did one on
crack.
You can't help yourself. Somebody says, "Do you want to write a book?" And you're like, "Yeah." Just like somebody will say, hey, do you want to have a pint? When you've got a stinking hangover, it's always a good idea. So yeah, in the 2007 version of SharePoint, we had a book, a developer's guide to the business data catalog. We also wrote a 2010 business connectivity services book. There isn't a 2013 one because it would be very much like copying and pasting the 2010 one and doing a few renames here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has evolved somewhat. There are some new additions to it, and also with Office 365 as well, you can use the business connectivity services. So what I hope to do, I know this is a power hour, so we'll need to rattle through this quite quickly to cover everything. So I'm going to show you as much as I possibly can of business connectivity services. Focus mainly on what you get out of BCS. So once we've understood why you might want to use business connectivity services and what it is, we'll have a look at some of the different things you can do with it, and that's under this power user category. We'll have a look at the external list and some of the different web parts that you can use, the business data column, which you can use in any SharePoint list and library, the Office client as well, so through Outlook, Excel, Word.
That's been around since 2010. I still don't see that many people realizing you could do that stuff in Outlook and in the Office clients.
Well, that's one of the things with business connectivity services in general. It's very misunderstood. People still think it's a way of displaying data in a web part. They don't open up the tool to see what else can be achieved with it. So yeah, there's some great Office integration with business connectivity services too. And then from the configuration side, there's a tool called SharePoint Designer, which is free, and you can use it's free. Yeah, did you not know that? So yeah, you can use SharePoint Designer to create an external content type, and that external content type, as you'll see in a moment, is really the first thing that we have to create in order to make this data available throughout SharePoint and Microsoft Office. So you can use SharePoint Designer to do that. You can also use Visual Studio to do that. A lot of the time you don't need to write code if you're going to connect to an OData data source or something. You can use Visual Studio and publish that connection, that external content type as an app. So that would just create you an external list. Or there's a great third-party tool which I might let Laura allude to a little bit later on.
You can see MetaMan's been around since, like, you know, y'all first created that product before you had the nice little SharePoint Designer UI to be able to create those.
That's right. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So when BDC MetaMan was first created, your choice was use Notepad or Notepad to build the external content type. So yeah, it was.
SharePoint's evolved and the product's evolved as well.
That's right. So SharePoint Designer can do that. It's still limited somewhat because you can only create connections to SQL, really. So if you wanted to connect to anything else, Salesforce.com or Oracle or anything like that, then you still have to write code or use a third-party tool. So that's where it comes in. So just briefly, the reasons for using business connectivity services, nearly every organization that you look at will have different islands of data or sources of data throughout the organization, and these are typically well-chosen applications to suit a department. So for example, you might use Dynamics CRM for your sales department, you might use Sage Accounting for accounts, there could be a HR database that's running on Oracle, lots of different data sources, and if you want to bring them together, you can expose that data into SharePoint. So you've got a single place that you can go and search all of these data sources. You can interact with all of that content as well. So looking up the data through the external data column inside a SharePoint list or a library. The benefit of that, if you imagine you're creating a proposal for one of your customers, let's say, and you've been asked to store all of your proposals inside a document library, what you could do is look up the customer that document was created for. So in a similar way to the managed metadata in the term store, you're looking up data directly from the customer's table or a stored procedure. It's returning all of your customers, you can select them, and that customer then gets stored as metadata against the document. there, the list is endless. What you can do, you can build views inside that document library per customer, or maybe per country on what proposals you've created.
Do people just come to you and say, we want dashboards?
Yes.
Figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get a lot of that too. Like,
Yeah.
they don't even know what the data is, or in a lot of cases.
Exactly. So
What it is.
you can build some really powerful solutions using BCS.
Once you got to figure out what you want though, and exactly what you want and where the data is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that gets rid of a lot of the training issues inside an organisation as well. I mean, if you
That's
take
true.
somebody like my colleague Andy, he knows how to send and receive email and browse the web. He still calls the internet Google and things like that. But if he wanted to go and look up a customer from SAP or something like that, you've got to train that guy on how to use that interface and so on. Whereas with SharePoint, if everybody's received training in SharePoint's the tool
That's
of
the one
choice.
place you go.
Yeah, you go there and you can bring all this data up.
So the IT people are the only ones that have to figure out the connectivity part. All the end users don't have to know how to go log in all these different places. Yeah, that's
Exactly. So what is BCS? So yeah, we've got a diagram here that kind of describes the layout of what Business Connectivity Services offers. So we've already mentioned that it's not just in SharePoint itself, but it's also in the Office client. So if you're using Office 2010 or Office 2013, you've got Business Connectivity Services available as well. So in the server side, we've got Webparts that can display data in a read-only fashion. They are basically data view Webparts. So if you are using SharePoint Designer, especially in a 2010 environment, you can very easily style those Webparts.
Oh.
Yeah, so just like you would do with a data view
Even though
Webpart.
you don't have a design.
Well, in 2013, there's the
Yeah.
the drawback. Yeah, you have to do it in
Yeah.
XSLT now. So, but yeah, the
Big bummer.
web parts are the same.
Yeah.
We have the search as well. Now, the search and the web
That's
parts
huge.
are they're limited to the still the enterprise license, but it's still a really powerful tool, like you said. So, in the same way that we can search for SharePoint content, we can search for external database content as well.
Customers, your HR info, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have a look at sort of things that Agnes Molnar are doing and Matt McDermott and what have you, they're creating some fantastic search result views using display templates. So rather than just displaying the metadata coming back from the customer in an external data source, you could do all sorts of things with that as far as the styling is concerned. So yeah, there's some great scenarios there. The external data column we talked about, so that's a field type that you can add to any SharePoint list or library and look at the data. There is an API, so programmers amongst you can go and develop your own solutions using BCS as well. There's also user profile import, so I'm a big fan of audience targeting and people searches and so on, but they're only as good as the information that people put in. So tell one of your colleagues to go and update their Facebook profile and they'll be on it all day. Ask them to update the SharePoint profile and they won't touch it. So if you've already got a lot of this information, if you've recorded data about your employees from their resume and so on, you can link to that database, that data source, using BCS and pull it in as a secondary user profile. So, so then the people searches become a lot better and your audience targeting becomes a lot better as well. And then finally there's the external list. So that's one where we mentioned you can create items, update them, delete them, build
And
views.
it looks just like a SharePoint list, except you're actually interacting with some other database, and the data's not actually in SharePoint.
Exactly, and that's some of the stuff that we're going to take a look at in just a moment. The Office client, so almost every application there in the Office client, you've got Outlook that will interact with this data, so you can pull customers through as contacts. Excel, you can display data in Excel, that's 2013 only, by the way. Access as well, you could build reports and queries and so on. Visio, you can build gauges on the external data through BCS.
Cool. I can see that.
And then yeah, we've also got Word and InfoPath as well.
We'll have to do like a whole SharePoint Power Hour on gauges.
Okay. I'll get learning. All right. So then we've also got what makes all this happen. That is the BDC runtime, and then we've also got the external content type. So it's the ECT that's configuring the connection string, and then you also have these methods that return the data. So you can have a finder method that returns all the data. You've got a specific finder that returns one row, and then a creator, updater, deleter, and so on. And they're all packaged inside this external content type that you deploy. So let's go and have a look at some of this stuff.
Okay.
All right. So the external list, as I mentioned, it looks just like an ordinary SharePoint list. You can create new items, edit, delete them, as you can see from the screenshot on my slide here. And there are some limitations. So the limitations are mainly due to the fact that the data doesn't actually reside inside the content database. This is external content.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is quite key. There are solutions out there that allow you to import data from an external data source.
Mm-hmm.
Now if you're importing data into a SharePoint list,
moving the data into SharePoint.
You're moving the data into SharePoint, your content database becomes inflated, and also you're going to have synchronization issues and record locking issues and so on. So one of the key things about BCS is the data is linked to, it's not imported. That means that the performance is quite great. There are still limitations on how much content you can have inside an external list.
Yeah, that's always tricky, huh?
Yeah, but you can get around that with filters, limit filters, and so on. But yeah, once the data is there, you can build these external lists and, like I said, interact with it. But you won't be able to build things like datasheet views, workflows, and so on that rely on the content being inside the list.
Because the content in a SQL database getting changed can't trigger a workflow.
Exactly.
SharePoint
Exactly.
workflow.
Okay, so let's just.
And so you can export it to Excel. That's a new thing. It said. You know what? I saw a client yesterday that all their end user, that this lady was going to a SharePoint list every morning and exporting the whole thing to a spreadsheet and putting it in a shared drive. She's doing that every day, and all of a sudden she couldn't do it anymore because the list had gotten really big.
Okay.
That was hilarious.
Excellent. So yeah, let's just let that refresh for a moment and pop back to the slide.
Good old SharePoint.
So yeah, VMware just sat there idle for a moment.
So this view item, edit item, delete thing that you have in the screenshot, that's something that whoever sets up the external content type can control what the people are going to be able to do with it.
Exactly. So the edit and the delete won't even show if you've not created an updater method or a deleter method. So yeah, that's inside the external content type. Okay, so let's just navigate back to our page. Sorry about this. Let's just take a moment to get there.
So are we going to the cloud? Or are we going
oh no, we're
to your VM?
We're in the VM.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I'm just going to recap while you're going to that page.
Sure.
So you create an external content type in SharePoint Designer, and then you can just from doing that, you can use those business connectivity Webparts to show the data. But then if you want people to be able to interact with it like a list or be able to edit it, that's when you would click the button to create an external list. And even without creating an external list, though, they can still go and create a column in some list or library that's got an external content.
Yep,
like
exactly that. Yeah, yeah. So what we have down on the left-hand side here, there's a number of different data sources set up as external lists. So this isn't limited to SQL. So if you go into SharePoint Designer, you might believe that because SharePoint Designer will only allow you to connect to SQL. But yeah, you can see that we've got some information coming from SAP. We've got information coming from Salesforce and so on. Let's just give that a shot. We're relying on the internet and so on here, but hopefully this will come back with some
right, because
data.
Salesforce is like a
cloud.
It's a cloud thing, huh?
Absolutely. So we'll just let that spin for a few
seconds. You guys
seconds.
ask questions as we go if you like. We have 30 viewers. That's a lot. That's way more than we usually have live because these are recorded. People watch them later. But if you're watching live, you have a little. If you're in the Google Hangout, you have a little square at the top right that lets you flip over from the Showcase app over to the Q&A app. It's just not as obvious as, and feel free to ask us questions.
Yeah. So yeah, this is primarily a test, but this is bringing in data from Salesforce. And if we go to something like SQL, you can see the view is going to look a little bit better here. We've carefully chosen some columns. Obviously, Salesforce has a lot of grids and things like that in there. But
right.
So yeah, Here is the ability to view, edit, delete the item. So I can click onto edit item, and that would allow me to write directly back to the data source. So that's really powerful. Notice there's also views here. So I've got a products read list, and also I've got another view here. So you can pick and choose the views, and these are basically multiple finder methods. So when you create your external content type, you can build more than one finder method, and that will allow you to automatically have these views display inside the external list. So
do end users create the views the same way?
They can also create views the same. Yep. Okay. So up on the list ribbon, you can create a view. Notice though that some of these views aren't available. Like I said, the datasheet view isn't there. So that's again because the data is not residing in the list itself. So mass operations can't take place. So it's very easy to create one of these. You basically go down, add an app, or create a list, whatever it was in SharePoint 2010 in old language. And in here we'll see the external list. So as we scroll down a little bit, there's the external list. So in the same way that we would create.
We have a question.
Oh, okay.
So Rob says, going back a little bit, does the Visio client functionality require Visio services? Probably.
So does well, you could use just the Visio client application.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. To show it on a SharePoint page.
To show on a page, you'd need the
Visio services to
correct.
show it Webparts.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a number of my external content types that I've got set up. One key thing is be careful about how you name some of this. So you can see I've been lazy in a few places when I go to name the external content type, and that's going to confuse your users. So something like Northwind products is clear, so you might have dynamic CRM products or something like that. So yeah, we can choose any of these external content types, click on OK, give it a name here, so I'll call this Laura Suppliers.
That's awesome. I didn't realize you could do that from the Add an App screen now in 2013.
Oh yeah. So once you've got BCS set up, it's very easy then for users to do some of this stuff.
Once you've gone through the steps in SharePoint Designer, yeah.
That's right. So there's Laura Suppliers, and very quick and easy. Okay. So let's just jump back to the slide for a moment. So that's the external list. There's the web parts as well. Now there are a suite of different web parts available. We have the BDC list, which uses the finder method, so it displays all the rows, all the columns.
Good old BDC list. Since 2007.
Exactly. And then you've also got related list as well. Again, this is something that's very overlooked. So what you can do there is if you've got a relationship between two of your tables, a one-to-many join, you can mirror that with your external content types using what's known as an association. And once you've done that, first of all, in the search results, that's really powerful. Because let's say we searched for a customer and we click on a customer in the search results. When it opens it up on the profile page, it won't just show the customer, but it will also show the associated data as well. So then you're going to see maybe the orders that the customer's placed or the quotations for that customer, and so on. You've also got the BDC related list web part that you can add onto the page. And using web part connections, you can join those web parts together. Then you can click on a customer, see the orders on the same page. So that becomes very powerful as well.
Do you use it for your customers and orders?
Do we use it? We do a bit, yeah. So yeah, we use Salesforce, and yeah, we've used this in Office 365 to get at that data. So that's quite handy. Yeah, certainly. So so here, if we just jump back to the main page. Okay, so so this is the product list web part, and this is where you'll miss SharePoint Designer. So here's the unit price column, and you'll notice, yeah, we might not want to make rounded corners and beautiful colors and that sort of thing. We might just want to fix a little issue like the number of decimal places and maybe show the currency symbol or something like that. In 2010, we could just nip into SharePoint Designer and fix that. Just right-click on that column, format as currency, and it would be fixed. Now you have to go into the XSLT to fix it. So that's one of the drawbacks with.
But you create a product to take care of.
We do, yeah. And that's Laura pimping it for me. So, so yeah, if we scroll down.
I'll post my blog post about that particular one, by the way.
Yeah, so this one here is known as the data viewer. So it's something that we created, and yeah, you can go through and style that, use conditional formatting, and so on, which is really nice. So the web parts, if we go and edit the page, you can click into any web part zone. So as we just scroll down a moment, and from the insert ribbon, go to web part, and under business data you'll see a number of different business data web parts. So there's the business data list.
If you've ever wondered what all those are, that's what they're connected to.
Absolutely. And then we've also got the related list and so on and so forth. So again, very easy to add onto the page and so on. Okay. What you can also do with them is select the columns that you wish to display and so on. So first of all, you have to edit the web part, and notice that in the top right corner there's no edit link there. But if I go and edit the web part properties,
and it lights up some other.
It lights up the edit view link.
Oh,
yeah.
That's tricky.
So yeah, in there we can edit the view. That will allow us to go and pick and choose the columns that we want to display, and you can also apply filters and that sort of thing through there as well.
Cool. We do have a question. I did just post in the little showcase my blog post that I wrote, where I just tried out the data viewer web part and just wrote a post about it as I tried it. And then we have somebody asking how much it cost. First, I'm just going to send you to lightningtools.com for now. But,
okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah, excellent. So in here, you can choose the columns that you want to show. You can also apply filters, choose how many items per page you want to display, that sort of thing.
Cool. And that's just out of the box.
That's out of the box, yeah. Now, notice that there's also these filters at the top here. So it's defaulting to retrieve all items, and the other two are grayed out. So this is something that you need to consider when you're creating the external content type, is you build the filters on the Finder method.
Does it have to do with authenticating the logged in user to it?
No, it's just about making those filters available. So if I wanted a filter by country on my suppliers or something like that, I need to create it in the external content type. Then the users can use it. Now this is key to performance. So if we have built the filter method, the filter on the Finder method, we're filtering the data for when we go and get it. If we scroll down to the bottom of the page here, you can filter on any column with any value, but this is filtering after the data's been fetched.
Less efficient.
Key here to go and create the filters that you think your users will need when they're configuring the external content type.
Got it.
So there's also custom actions that you can build, and these will be lit up through the external list and also through the web parts as well. So imagine you're seeing a list of customers on your page, or a list of suppliers on the page. One of the things you might want to do is email them, or you might want to Google them, or Bing them, or whatever. So rather than have the user open up a new browser session and maybe copy and paste the name of the company or something like that, they can just click a link. So you can define these links in SharePoint Designer or Central Administration that you basically provide the URL and it has a parameter.
Oh, like a query, it just sends a query string to...
Exactly. So you build a query string and you say, all right, I want to pass the customer name column through to the query. So then as you click the action for each row, it will open up a new tab and
I
query
can
the
think
customer.
already off the top of my head of customers where I should just go implement that.
We used that for something that was very useful once with Documentum. We had a customer, in fact it was Christina Wheeler and I were working on this project up in Princeton, and they had Documentum and they wanted to be able to display the documents from Documentum in SharePoint. So we used BCS to query the data, display it in a list, and then we had a custom action that opened up Documentum and the file as you clicked onto the link. So yeah, some really powerful scenarios that you can build with that.
We have a question.
Okay.
Is there a limit to how many rows of data are available from the external source?
Yes, there is. Yeah. So that's key to the external list only, really. So the external list for SQL is limited to 5,000, but that's only SQL. the limits will differ depending on what the data source is. And for everything else, it's based on the size of the data that's coming back, not the number of rows.
Yeah, because your one row could have 200 columns or
Exactly.
500 columns.
Exactly. But what you can do is create what's known as a limit filter. So you can say, well, I'm going to limit the number of rows that come back to 1,000. We're going to limit that based on a particular query, if you like, so we'll bring back a subset. Okay, so the external data column, so this is just a standard type of column that you can add to any SharePoint list or library. So in the same way that we'd add a single line of text or multiple line of text column, you can add the external data column. And the external data column, you basically go through and configure which external content type you want it to use and which columns you want to show in the lookup. So let's just take a quick look at that. So here inside a document library, I've set one up called purchase orders. Okay, so here's a number of different purchase orders, and you'll be able to see that we've got some supplier information displayed.
So this is a document library. So this, I guess, this is not the external list that we were talking about a minute ago. So this data in this library is not in a database. He's just using one field from the database to do a lookup.
Exactly, yeah. So you could use managed metadata to go and look up key terms that are related to your business. Okay.
How does that get updated, though?
All right, so this is a similar thing. The reason for using managed metadata is you want people to be able to look up a keyword, and that will provide consistency within your filters and your views and so on when you're applying filters. This is the same thing, but the data is live. So you go and create a new customer in your CRM database, and that customer is immediately available to look up from the external data source. So yeah, you create a quotation or a proposal or what have you, and you can look up against that customer. Now, what's great about this is it interacts really well with Office. Now, my VM has this built-in feature that whenever I'm demonstrating this, it fails.
I like that. It's in this little bonus you have in there.
and whenever I'm not demonstrating, it works beautifully. So let's just keep our fingers crossed here. So I'm going to go to the Files tab and create a new document. So this has already been created. You can go and modify the or replace the default template for the document library.
Content type or template, yeah.
Yeah. So what we can do with that is use these things called quick parts that you can drop into the document. So I've inserted a few here. So let's say we're going and creating a purchase order.
We did a whole other power hour about quick parts, by the way.
Oh, excellent. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is using quick parts. So I can just click inside the supplier name column and look up
to the database. Cool.
From the database. Yeah. And we'll give this 10 seconds. If it goes beyond that, it's probably going to fail.
Okay.
You often find wiggling the mouse speeds it up, of course. And
throwing the computer across the room, does that speed it up?
That sometimes works. But yeah, we can fill in a few gaps whilst we're waiting for that. So here in the top, oh, there we go. So notice at the top here we've got the a filter as well. Now these filters also have to be created, otherwise they're useless. Okay. So these are again filters that you might want to do a filter by country or something like that, so you can bring back fewer results. Now this is known as the picker, and this picker can only show 200 items. So talking about limits, that's one of them. So it's a good idea to create these filters. For example, I could create a filter on the company name column, which is known as a wildcard filter. So if I wanted to search for Pavlova Limited, I could type in PA and it would bring back Pavlova Limited, and we're going to get around that 200 item limit. So Bigfoot breweries sounds good. I'm on vacation this week, so breweries is a cool thing. So what I'm going to do is choose that Bigfoot breweries, click on OK, and notice it's filled out the other column values, the other quick parts. It's also filled out the document information panel at the top there. And so what I can do is save this document directly to my purchase order document library, and we'll call it Laura purchase order. And save that. And if we go and refresh the document library, there's our purchase order, and we've got that information already filled out. So so here we can filter on all of those columns,
Mm-hmm.
build views on them. What's also powerful is you can link the document library to one of the BDC list web parts that we've already seen. So that if you had the document library as a list view web part on the page connected to a BDC list, that would allow you to select the customer and then see all the documents that you have stored for that customer. So again, some very powerful scenarios. So how do we create that? Let's just very simple.
We've alluded to it.
Yeah. So here on the files, on the library tab, you can create a column. I'm just looking for that button there. Oh, there we go. So create column, and it's this one here. So we just choose the external data, and that allows me to choose the external content type. So any of those are available. So if I chose products, and we'll call this Laura Products, and we get to choose which column from the products table do we want to store, and which do we want to display. So we could display the unit price, the units in stock, units on order.
I remember this functionality and thinking that was so cool back in SharePoint 2007 that you could do it in this, but you couldn't do it just with a regular lookup across lists. And then finally in SharePoint 2010 they added that functionality.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So yeah, there we go. That's that column's now created, and I can look up products for each of these as well as the supplier.
Okay.
And then inside Word, it's a case of going to the Insert ribbon, and here in the drop down you'll have quick parts. So they're under there. So you would need to open up Word again for those to reflect, but you'll be able to choose the product name and add that onto the document itself.
And you put all the quick parts into the document template, and then you take the template with all the quick parts already in it and put that as your content type. And that way, every time somebody creates a new document, then we do about that.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Okay, so that's some of the Office client integration right there.
So we've got about 15, 20 minutes left. Did you want to show SharePoint Designer before? Because I wanted to let you show some of the Lightning tool stuff, especially Deliver Point. Sorry.
Well, I think we'll do Deliver Point maybe another day. We could look at BCS MetaBand today because that's topical.
Because it's related. Yeah. That's true.
Great. So, yeah, the Office integration. We covered the Word side of that, but yeah, Outlook and so on. You can bring the data into Outlook, so all of the customers you could display as contacts.
It would look like an actual contact list.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's the search as well. So here, if we search on Lager, hopefully we'll bring back some Lager results, which are coming back from the external data source, and that will be along any moment now. Honest. So what the search results do as well is there we go. So we've got the search results. You can build these profile pages. So it's where or how the data gets displayed when you click that link.
Yep.
So it will display all of the information on a profile page, and those profile pages can also be styled as well.
Oh, nice.
So that's quite good. And you've got the regular sort of refinements and that sort of thing that you can work with.
So that's in search. That is a new content source that you create as a BCS content source?
Absolutely. So you create a content source, business connectivity services. We'll also say line of business data. So we choose that, and then you point that at one of your external content types, and it will crawl it. Cool. So yeah, absolutely. So so that's the search side of things. There's a whole lot of setup that you might need to do if this works. So you need to create the service application, the business data connectivity service application. That's where you can import these external content types, okay, or you can deploy directly to SharePoint. And then, of course, we need to build it. We need to build the external content type. So what we'll look at here is how to do that.
All right.
So yeah, you can use SharePoint Designer. So let's just fire up SharePoint Designer in our environment.
There are not many things that you can still do in SharePoint Designer, but external content types are one of the things that and workflows that you can do.
It's very useful for that. Yeah. So this should allow me to query the external content types that we've already got created, and also allow us to create a new one. So here on the left, we go to external content types, Okay, so that brings back all the external content types that I've already created. They're all stored inside a managed metadata store, which is a SQL database.
So when I open SharePoint Designer, am I going to see all the external content types in the whole farm right here?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so these are farms. So it doesn't matter what site you open when you go into SharePoint Designer as well. So when I create a new external content type, you get to name it. So here I could call it Laura Suppliers again. And you can also go down and configure your connection. So
that's important.
Yeah, so it's remembered my connection from the last time I did the demo, probably. But if we want to add a connection, you can see you've got a .NET type, WCF service, or SQL Server. So connecting to SQL Server, you give it the database name, the server name, and how you want to authenticate. So here's the tables returned from that. So if we go down to suppliers, we can right-click and create the read operation, the read list, the create, update, delete. So you can create those individually or do all of them by saying create all operations, and that will allow us to go through.
That's easier. Not create all of them, and then I'll just pick and choose which ones I want to delete.
Exactly, yeah. So then you've got the columns, and there's some properties that you can set on each one. So things like the show in picker is useful. So that's the picker that we saw inside Word. You also see it in the browser as well. So if you don't want a column to display, then don't select it. If you don't change that for any of them, all of your columns will be available, so be aware of that. The timestamp field, I also get questions about all the time. This is for the search indexing. So what you can do, if take Dynamic CRM, it has a date that the customer was last modified. So if you make that the timestamp field, then when SharePoint reindexes the content, it knows that I've already indexed this, and I don't have to reindex that row. It's not changed.
So you click on an actual date and time field over on the left, and then you check the timestamp field on the right. So,
exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So that will help your
so
indexing.
Whatever field you're selecting on the left, that's the configuration stuff that you're doing for that one field on the right.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, there's a number of things in there that you can set, and then we get to create the filters. So this is where you can add a filter. And
it very strongly encourages you to create a filter on the little warning message.
Yeah, well, it's encouraging the limit filter.
Yeah.
So yeah, in here you've got the filter type. So there's the wildcard filter that I mentioned was one that you could type the first letter of a customer name, and it would bring back everything that begins with that letter. And there's also the limit filter. So these just need to exist. And you can set a default value in there of say 1,000, so it will bring back 1,000 rows from that connection.
Okay, we've got a question.
Okay.
Frank says, I have an SSIS package to load hierarchy data to SharePoint lists, which is used to populate fields in other lists. Problem is, when hierarchy changes, I lose historical data in those other lists. What is the best practice to retain historical values?
Okay, so one area in the document library, when we use that external data column, that actually takes a snapshot of the data when it stores it. It doesn't actually contain the link to the data anymore. It stores those values. And you have a refresh indicator that will allow you to go and refresh the data if you want to.
A negative and a positive.
Yeah. So I don't know if that will help in that scenario, but
so if you had versioning on in that library, would that then be a way to go see what the values?
Yeah, you could probably see the. Yeah, I'm not certain.
Yeah,
on that,
I think that Frank, maybe something like having reporting services, doing snapshots or something like that would be a completely different way to be able to store the old values. I don't know if BCS is necessarily.
There's also something you can code an event notification service.
Oh.
So this is one way where you can get workflows to run or events to fire as the data is updated. So that might be something that you could do via workflow and store historical data in another list or a library somewhere else.
In summary, you have to go way out of your way to do what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
There is if I can interject. There's another method I've used in the past for something similar to this, where since the questioner is already familiar with SSIS, I've pulled used an SSIS package to pull the BCS data into a SQL table, and then pull that or push that into a SharePoint list with versioning, and then the version information is retained even if the data rows are overwritten.
Okay, good to know.
There we are. There's the answer.
It's a pain. It's a pain.
Okay. So that's the external content type configured, and all you need to do from there is save it. So hit the floppy disk icon. Those of you who know what one of those is, that then writes back to the metadata store all of the properties that you configured, and then that's ready to go. You can you can now use this suppliers table throughout SharePoint.
And that will be available in your, when you choose the external column.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's Visual Studio as well that I mentioned. So you could, if you like writing code, go in and build an external content type. It's not rocket science. You can create connections to Oracle or whatever you want to create, and there is a project type template that you can use.
Oh.
What it does is it creates the method stubs for you. So you can say I want a finder method, a specific finder, updater, deleter, and so on. It creates method stubs, and then you need to write the connection information and bring back the data in an array. And so on. So it's not the hardest thing to do in the world, but it is obviously time consuming. It's not as easy as going to SharePoint Designer and connecting to SQL. So yeah, Laura really twisted my arm here to show you the MetaMan product. So just very briefly, this does the same thing. It's a tool that works just like SharePoint Designer for building external content types. So yeah, we could connect to SQL, we can connect to ODBC data sources, so we have a number of different data sources that we support, the Salesforce, WCF, OData, and so on. So through all of those, you should be able to connect to almost any external data source.
So it's got a nicer UI around doing some of the more obscure ones, as opposed to SharePoint Designer gives you SQL and gives you a web service, and then anything else is kind of up to you.
Yeah. So hopefully Oracle's okay, might not be. I might need to start the Oracle service, but so we could connect to an Oracle database and do the same thing. Let's go to good old reliable SQL, and we can go and connect to a SQL database, and the nice thing is here you can just drag the tables that you want to connect. These are the methods over on the right, so your add, update, and delete. So we can select those and go and drop orders onto the table as well, do the same sort of thing.
That's slick.
And let's just make that full screen as well. So one of the other things we can do is preview the data. So SharePoint Designer doesn't give you that, so you've already published the external content type to SharePoint before you know that you're actually getting the right data back. So that's one of the benefits there, and yeah, you can build associations.
I was just about to say, it looks kind of like Microsoft Access, where you can drag the relationships.
Exactly. So there we can set the primary key and the foreign key, and that then allows us to build the join and so on. So you get your associations created, and that can be pushed directly out to SharePoint.
Oh, cool.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
So if you have views that you can go to, like SQL views, when you're creating the external content type in SharePoint, where you can go just pull in one of those instead of a table, would it be more efficient to go pull in all the separate tables and then create the associations, or just create the view that already has?
No, absolutely. So I mean, this is just a demo database, but if you were, I mean, a lot of these tables in real life will have millions of rows. So one thing you don't want to do is start applying filters through your external content type if you can help it. So you build a stored procedure or build a view, let SQL do the work, and then bring that data back using the external content type.
Oh, okay.
But you can still build the associations on views as well. So as long as you've got the primary keys and the foreign keys there, you can build the associations, and
that way you can have multiple web parts and stuff with the different.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Gabe has a question. Can MetaMan change an existing BCS?
Yes, it can. So one thing you can do from SharePoint Designer is export the model file. So you get a BDCM file. With MetaMan, you can import that. So from the file menu there, you can open up any model, and it will display it, and you can make the changes and so on.
And then do you go back in Central Admin into the BCS in there to put it back in, or you?
Two ways of doing that. So you can either generate the model file
Mm-hmm.
again, and that way you go into Central Admin and import it, or you can just deploy.
Oh, okay.
So through the configure properties, you'll notice you got a version number, so you can increment that version number, so that will update it in
Nice.
in Central Admin as well.
Good to know. All right, we've got like 3 more minutes left. Any other
Okay.
questions about BCS? Anything? Kevin or Ryan?
And whilst we're waiting for any other questions, I'll just say that this is also available for Office 365.
Nice.
If
Cloud.
yeah, so here we are in Office 365 as well. Notice we've got the same external lists. There's some data coming from Azure, and
So you just open it up in SharePoint Designer just like you would
something went wrong.
in on-premises?
Yeah, so in the SharePoint admin page in Office 365, you can import a model file. So,
okay.
So yeah, you can use SharePoint Designer to create the connection, or you can use MetaMan to create the connection, whatever you want to do. Generate the model file, import that into the admin page, and then it's available. You can build your external lists, add the web parts, and
And your your external data needs to be in the cloud, though, if you're going to do that, right? If you're on-premises data.
Yes. So there is a bit of a trick to this. One thing you could do is replicate your data with something like SQL Azure. So you could use the service bus to do that. So yeah, connecting to something like that is straightforward. Obviously, if the data is already in the cloud, like the Salesforce we mentioned, then that's easy enough to do.
Nice. Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. That was awesome.
Okay.
I learned a good bit. I hadn't used BCS in a while, so
So probably good refresher. If anything.
Yeah. Especially the part about being able to go in and click add an app and be able to just create the external list like that and realize that was in there.
Yeah, there's a whole lot more to it. I mean, that's as much as we can fit in an hour. But, yeah, we wrote a 400-page book on what you can do with BCS. It's a really powerful tool.
Yeah. I wrote one chapter on. I wrote that one chapter in our beginning SharePoint 2010 book, and as I was writing the chapter, I was asking you about like kind of how to structure it and this and that. Yeah, that was fun stuff.
Excellent.
All right, so I don't know what Power Hour is going to be about next week. We'll figure that out. But thanks, Brett, for coming to my house. And we've never had a Power Hour guest like here before. That's pretty cool.
Not hiding in the bathtub or anything like that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So, yeah, I guess over and out. And, of course, anybody can watch these anytime they're recorded on YouTube. And Jack says he's looking at these tools to do that, to get his, what I was just asking you about, get his on-site SQL into his Office 365 SharePoint. So that's going to be
great.
The Azure thing that he was just talking about.
But if anybody has any questions that they want to direct at me as well, you can email me on brett@lightningtools.com. So I'll be happy to answer anything, or on Twitter as well. It's @BrettLonsdale.
Yep, and Frank, Salesforce. That's all. That's a cloud service. So yeah, you're connecting to the tables in Salesforce, right?
So Salesforce is a little complex from the Salesforce side. You need to register the API or the app. So that creates you
They need to know your licensing.
Correct. So you need the a consumer key and a consumer secret, which you need to add into your external content type, so that it will actually allow you to authenticate with Salesforce. But yeah, that can be done, and you need whatever it's called, better than professional, whatever the next license. I can't remember if it's Salesforce Enterprise, but the Salesforce Professional doesn't allow you to connect to the API.
Oh.
So that's the
your
the
Salesforce
issue
license will govern that. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up, and thanks everybody for coming, and thanks, Brett, for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, over and out. Bye, Kevin and Ryan.